Let's start with harmony because I think that's a very interesting topic. Very interesting topic to cover. Um, and it should be about half the stream, maybe. Who knows? Um, we'll see. We'll see. So we have a piano going on, and I think the best way to start writing harmony is to first write a melody. Uh, all right. So the thing about harmony is there's a lot of ways you can think about it. You can either do classical harmony, which is very boring, just maths. Then there is like the weird theoretical harmony you learn at school, and then there is the cool way, where you just pretend you know what you're doing, but you actually don't, and that's what I'm trying to do. um, so yeah, I kind of touched upon trying to make the melody work in both major and minor scales. Uh, and it's because uh, I'll try to explain both at the same time. So right now, this little amazing melody is written in C major. Uh, move the roll till it sounds decent. That's it. That's all music theory. Yeah, more or less. Um, so yeah, let's write some very simple chords. Since I'm only on white keys, it means I'm in C major, which means the three basic chords of C major is C, then F major, and G major, or G7 if you're trying to be uh, precise. And the wondrous thing about working in C major is that as long as you follow the white keys, it'll always sound decent, at least. Right, I think it's a little bit too quiet. Let's use a compressor to make it a bit louder. If a producer is now watching the stream and saw me using a compressor to make things louder, he's probably very angry at me. Not minor downvote. I'll quickly explain minor as well. But essentially, what I did right now is each scale essentially has 7 chords that you can choose from. And I chose the first, the fourth, the fifth, and then the first again. Um, this is because the first obviously is the root. So whenever the root chord plays, it's the most satisfying. That's why it's at the start and at the end as well. The fifth chord, in this case G major, is a bit interesting because fifth always leads directly into the root chord. It's satisfying. And the peculiar thing about the fourth, or in Latin it's known as the subdominant, it leads both into the root chord and the dominant or the fifth as well. So this is like the most basic thing you can think of when thinking about harmony. Most folk songs are, or folklorish songs are probably written like this. Now the interesting thing about thinking major and minor is that they're actually kind of equivalent. I talked about how writing in C major is very easy because you're just following white notes. But the same thing can be said about A minor, which instead of on C starts on A. And again, I can build a chord using only white keys. And we can try to do the same thing, go from the root to the fourth, to the fifth, and back to the root. Now, you might hear it, you might see it, all the chords I'm using are minor. And even though it sounds deep, I think we can do a little bit better. What do I mean by that? Well, since C major and A minor are equivalent, as I said, we can actually go between the two and mix and match the chords. So for example, if I don't like the second chord, this D minor, if you remember, when the fourth chord of C major is actually F major. So if I change it to F major, only white keys, it should theoretically still sound okay. And Lord and behold, it sounds deep. So yeah, that's kind of one way to approach harmony, where you write it one way and then mix and match between the equivalent chord of the scale, but in major and minor. If that makes sense a little bit. Because when writing a harmony, you don't necessarily have to start on the root chord. In this case, either C or A. You can start on the fourth again, because as I said, it leads to both the root and the fifth. So we can start on F major. Then this leads to either C or G, which sounds uplifting, but I don't feel like uplifting. So G is the fifth chord of C major. So I can do an equivalent from A minor, which I don't remember, so I'll have to remind myself. So A, 1, 2, 3, that's E. Okay. So instead of G major, we can be using E minor. Sounds okay. And I feel like it kind of leads into D minor, I guess. Let's try that. And then we'll end with C major. And you know what? What we can do to make this a little bit more interesting, how about we do it to Megalovania? So this is like the most basic way to think about harmony, to sort of be wary of which chord you're using from the scale, and then if it doesn't quite fit, you can use the equivalent from a parallel minor or major scale. And then thing you can do with chords is that you can, as long as you're using the same notes, you can change octaves to make it a little bit more interesting. And at some point, you can be like, oh, I know what I'm doing. So you start adding more notes for flavor, and it'll probably sound decent. What happened there? Why does it sound the same? It's because we're not using any bass line. That's why, dude. What I'm doing now is, as you can see, not quite organized. And essentially, this is what I meant when I said just keep doing stuff and pretend you know what you're doing. Because even though music has quite a bit of rules, it's just as important to keep breaking them. So as long as it sounds decent, you can just, keep going. So anyways, I started blasting Megalovania, hell yeah.